Hi everyone, welcome to Ask Extra and John's Briefs here with one of my favorite humans, Tim Forshey. And he
that
is...
I have a hard time believing. You
know
know a lot of
I
humans,
mean it.
brother.
I do know a lot of humans, but you are a fine one with a strong moral compass and a heart to help people, and that is heartfelt and value added,
Thanks,
and I
man.
appreciate
that.
that.
Means a lot. I appreciate that.
And I don't just say that. Tim's been here with us doing these John's Briefs for quite some time now, and I think brings a really cool perspective to the channel. So we're talking today about our concept of a jury and what a jury is and how a jury acts. And I think that people watch too much Law and Order, quite frankly.
Amen to that.
And too much, so if you're really old, if you're drawing Social Security, you watched Perry Mason.
Oh yeah, Stella or Della.
Della.
Reese.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But for those of the last 25 years, been watching Law and Order, right? Dick Wolf. And I'll tell you, the more that I do court stuff, the more I yell at the TV.
Yeah,
I can't watch it anymore. Right. I used to really enjoy Law and Order, and now I can't. But I want to talk about this analogy that I've been kind of thinking through in my head and get Tim's input on it and what he thinks of jury.
Firearms Legal Protection is who I trust to help me after a use of force incident. If you're a Firearms Legal Protection member, I will also be on your team as a consulting expert, and you can attend our monthly active self-protection training seminars for free. Check out all they offer to their members at the link below.
So I think it was Masad Ayub who said that a jury has, some people would say that a jury is 12 people too stupid to get out of jury duty.
Which everybody says that one.
Yeah, and people say that one, and that's always stuck me wrong.
Yeah, it does me too.
And I go, I get it, haha, it's a joke, you know what I mean? Like, I can say, hi, I'm a terrible racist and get out of jury duty,
right.
Or whatever, if the defendant is a different race than I am. Or, I have extremist political views and, try to get out of that or whatever.
All cops are liars.
Yeah.
I hate insurance companies. I look for any opportunity to screw an insurance company if I can.
Right.
If you're willing to publicly embarrash yourself, you can always get off jury duty.
At the same
time, it does
time,
make you a good American.
Right, it makes you a terrible human because jury duty is part of your civic responsibility, right? I haven't even been in a pool since 2007. So even though that idea of 12 people too stupid to get out of jury duty, Masad Ayub is who I heard it from, at least. I don't know if he came up with it, that a jury is instead, has a combined 600 years of life experience and an IQ of 1,200. Right. 12 people, an average IQ of 100.
Times 12 people.
Times 12 people, you've got a 1,200 IQ, and of course you don't know how they go. And so, and what are those 12 people going to be interested in? I don't know. So I started saying, I said this a couple times this last weekend, and you've been in front of all kinds of juries, right? As a judge pro tem and as a criminal defense attorney, as a prosecutor. But even the few that I've been in front of, I look at them now like, okay, 600 years of life experience and an IQ at 1,200, this is a dragon. And the thing is that dragon has 600 years of life experience and an IQ at 1,200, but I don't know what that dragon is interested in.
That's right.
I don't know what's shiny to that dragon.
We do know it breathes fire.
Yeah, and I also know that I'm crunchy and I taste good with ketchup. And so I've started saying, look,
we can stretch an analogy here. I love it. I'm with you. I like it.
So I started saying to people, like, look, so as an expert witness, I stand in front of a jury and I know that the jury ain't going to eat me, but I better be respectful. Okay?
Yeah, you can't. This isn't a dragon you can slay. It's a dragon you got to tame and make sure it's in your backyard.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, okay, but if instead I'm the defendant, then that dragon might eat me.
Yep.
And I don't know what it's interested in, and so I don't want to stand before the dragon.
Nope.
Because
that's what people have a hard time believing that. I talk people out of jury trials so often.
So there's an interesting question. First of all, as a guy who has done bench trials as the judge, right? If you had a self-defense case, would you rather a client have a bench trial?
No.
You'd rather them face the dragon.
If I have a bench trial, there's only one person that I can convince. If I have 12 people,
I only got to convince one of the 12.
Convince one. So no, if it's self-defense case, I want a jury every time.
Okay.
If it's and I have my own law firm and I have the ability to turn away people I don't want to represent. So I don't represent child molesters and that sort of thing, but that's typically where you want a bench trial because you don't want the passion of a jury that's basically a lynch mob. That's where you want the dispassionate view of a judge, a seasoned juror in theory.
Right. A professional jurist, as it were.
In theory, yeah. But yeah, for self-defense, I want my 12 shots at getting one person to say I quit.
Yeah. See, as the defendant, right? You only have to convince one juror.
That's right. It doesn't get you acquitted, but a mistrial is the next best thing.
A mistrial.
Eventually, the state's going to get tired of this. So yeah.
And man, I had a trial last year that the judge 5 days of deliberation, and the judge would not give the jury.
Some of them really dig in.
a deadlocked instruction, a hung jury instruction, wouldn't give it. And so here's the funny part is I go, look, man, the number of people who are informed jurors, because man, if somebody in that jury room knew and said, we don't have to make a decision, we can come back locked. And well, the judge said we have to keep deliberating. He or she can say that.
I'm going to sit here and read your digest, and you guys can all go to hell. I'm not changing my vote.
Right, so we can sit here and argue that, or you can go tell the judge.
Even a stubborn judge, and I've had them too, even a stubborn judge will eventually, when the presiding judge starts saying, just how long are we tying up your courtroom again on this?
Yeah.
I mean, eventually, if the jury really is deadlocked, they'll reach a hung jury decision.
Yeah. And of course, the judge wants a decision instead. We want a decision instead. But as an informed juror, no. I get this idea that people think, well, okay, so the jury is always going to look at things the way that I would.
Big mistake.
And I go, but that dragon, it's a 600-year-old dragon.
My best story on that one is from when I was a very young lawyer, and I was second chairing a civil trial, with a really well-respected attorney who's still practicing, so I'm not going to use her name, but just a really great lawyer. Really, she's one of those people, she's forgotten more than I'll ever remember.
Sure.
She's just great. We tried this case, and it was our client. We were representing the client, but an insurance company had hired us to represent this client in a rear-end case. We had rear-ended this other person. There was a female plaintiff in her car, and my client had rear-ended her car. We admitted liability, which means we admitted that we were at fault for the accident.
We did it, and it was our fault.
We did it. Now it's just a matter of how much do the damages be, and we felt that they were asking for more than the case was worth, and they thought that we were offering less than the case was worth, so the case went to trial. And we basically said, you know what, jury, you don't even have to decide liability. We admit liability, and now it's just a question of how much money do we owe her. And the jury returned a defense verdict.
Oh, the jury said nothing.
The jury said we're awarding her nothing.
Wow.
And we're like, how can that be? We
admitted liability.
We admitted she had some injuries, and we admitted liability. We were prepared to pay, I don't know, 50, 60 grand, something like that. So you're allowed to speak to the jury when the trial concludes.
Yeah,
if the jury's willing to do so, you're allowed to actually go over and have, you can have dinner with them if you'd like. And the woman who it turned out was and it's always the last person you think is going to be the foreman is the person that gets elected foreman. It was a little old lady, sweet as can be. I don't remember her name, and of course this is over 30 years ago. And she said, well, you guys said you caused her to be injured, and that she said that she had really bad problems with her back and her neck. But I noticed during that trial, that 3-day-long trial, that her toenail polish changed color every day during that trial. And
so her back ain't that bad.
She went home and did her own pedicure after each day of trial and changed her toenail polish. Clearly, she was making this whole thing up. Her back wasn't injured, that lying little bitch. And they awarded her 0. They don't know if her husband did her nails. They don't know if she owned a nail clinic. They decided that she was lying because she changed her toenail polish. I just love telling that story because last thing I noticed during that trial was the color of that woman's toenail polish, I'll tell you that. But some juror noticed it, and that was the only reason they needed to hang her out to dry.
I've never seen a dragon interested in toenail polish.
This one was.
But this one was.
I mean, just weird things like that.
Yeah.
I would never even have noticed it.
And
And of course, like I said, it wasn't like they noticed something that was right. They noticed something that might have been right.
Yeah.
But they just jumped to a conclusion, and that was all they needed.
Well, and listen, you guys know if you get hired, if you hire an expert witness, okay, so in that case, you're explaining, and it means it's a mess.
Yeah.
Okay.
It needs explaining.
It needs explaining. It's a mess. I'm just telling you what the reality is, right? I had a paralegal in a case that I was in, and she, Paul, John, I'm so sorry. I know this whole case is a shit show, and I was like, it's the only show I'm invited to. I'm never invited to a non-shit show. That's why I'm here, right? Like, so let's see what this is. In the last 2 cases that have gone to trial, we've tried to say, hey, wait a minute, I really want you to just consider this very thin slice of action here. Is this justified in this moment, given the totality of the circumstances? And we've had pretty good success on that, except for the jury's up to, no, I want to look at all this that happens before and after too, and that's their right.
That's the jury's choice.
That's the jury's choice. And I mean, I have said to them, listen, you're the ultimate finder of fact. And to me, that's as an expert part of my building rapport with a jury is to go, hey, I know what your role is, Mr. Dragon.
And by the way, folks, in case you don't know this, and John does know it, but so it's amazing how many expert witnesses have no concept of that, of building a rapport. They're there to just lecture like they're lecturing at Yale and then go on to the next lecture hall.
I'm the professor, let me tell you, and tell you how...
And that whole relating the jury and building a rapport with the jury and gaining the jury's trust is why he's an excellent expert witness, and a lot of them aren't. because you get that. So,
Well,
I mean, you get that in your life, but my point
quite
is
frankly,
a lot of people don't.
That's why I'm expensive. Let's be honest. I mean, well, I don't.
That's true.
I have other friends that
Yeah.
do some of this work, and I will refer over to those friends, and I'll be like, hey, man, your client can't afford my rates. I get it. I understand. I'm kind of the prominent national level guy, and if that's not going to work for you, totally get it. I have other affiliates and other friends that I can send your way. That's just like the same in the firearms instructor space, right?
Yeah.
I'm expensive for private lessons. I'm an expensive guy to hire for private lessons because I'm really good at what I do, and you may not need me.
Well, it's not only that, but it's taking away. If you're making $400 an hour doing X, why would you go over and do Y for $90 an hour?
Right.
You can't afford to do
You
it.
just can't afford to do it. So anyhow, I mean, those ones here, we said this narrow piece. But listen, man, when you go to the Dragon, you go, hey, I understand. You are responsible for this, Mr. Dragon, Mrs. Dragon, and I'm not. And but my hope is that you'll listen to me to decide not to eat this guy.
Yeah.
Because I don't think this guy should get eaten. This guy's a good guy, and he shouldn't get eaten because what he did was okay. But I'll tell you, some of that other stuff in there is we had a case where the prosecuting attorney filed a 404 motion that, and the judge allowed every bit of previous bad
Prior
acts.
bad acts, yeah.
Prior bad acts all showed up. We were really hoping otherwise.
That's rare.
Yeah.
Usually you wouldn't see that. There has to be a pattern or a habit that has to be established, and that's pretty rare, and it's so prejudicial. That might be the basis to overturn on appeal as well.
Yeah, in this particular case, probably not. I was hoping the judge wouldn't, but the prior bad acts, so this guy was on the phone with 911 saying a guy pointed a gun at him. He'd done that a couple of times previously, and they had not found a gun, and it was probably made up.
Okay.
And so the judge was like, we're going to allow that. Also happened to have a prior felony on his record, and so then the judge was like, not a good human, and so we're going to allow that because it speaks to, those two combined speaks to, and I was like, oh, that's bad.
Well, and the felony is pretty much always admissible. So
yeah, the felony, the conviction's admissible,
Correct, yeah.
right? But the rest of the stuff involved in that. So is the jury, that jury gets to see that. I'll also say, a jury has multiple people with personalities on it. And so last case that I just testified, again, I hope to have that in the ASP Unlimited app soon in its entirety. At the end of direct examination, again, I try to build rapport with the jury. Let me talk to you about what's going on. We take a break, and the jury says, I go to the defense attorney, we're sitting on break. And it's interesting, I think sometimes people think that like the defense team and the prosecution team want to fight each other. It's like jets and sharks. It's really not.
Shouldn't be.
It's not,
Rarely
right?
is, yeah.
We're professionals. You're doing your job, we're doing our job. We understand we have a difference of opinion as to what's going on here, but we're all going home at the end of the day, okay? And I tell them at the end, I've got 5 jurors that are absolutely hanging on what I'm talking about. They are right with me. They are nodding. They're talking to me. I had one guy who, in that particular jury, at one point, during cross-examination, the prosecutor went over to talk to his co-counsel, so there's a lull, these happen, right? And I'm looking at the jury and just kind of hanging out there, and the guy looks at me and he's got tattoos like this. He comes in wearing a 5'11" polo and a pair of pants, and he winks at me and gives me the, hey, how you doing? All right, that guy's an ASP fan. That guy knows who I am. Anyhow, but I said, look, I've got those 5 really going with me, but this woman over here, she wants nothing to do with anything I'm saying. I'm telling you, she is literally giving me the stink eye, literally looking at me like, see her write a question down that goes to the judge, because the jury can ask questions too of the experts, right, or of any witness.
In most jurisdictions, ours we can, and in New Mexico they can.
Yeah, so they can, most places. So, I have a question from the jury, and I knew exactly which questions are hers because she's acting as an adjunct to the prosecution.
Wow.
And come to find out, so I say, hey, that woman, she don't want to hear anything I'm saying. And they say, oh, she's a retired cop. And I said, you guys didn't preemptively strike there?
That makes me ask, then who did you preemptively strike?
Right, who the heck did you strike if you let her on the jury? But they didn't. She apparently had an outsized view of what went down, because I thought we did a really good job, and there it is. The other side of that, something to think about, I'd love to talk with you about this too, Tim, is that in the jury, there's all this, it shouldn't be political, but in this last case that I did, they sent the jury out at 1 p.m. on Friday to deliberate. And
they don't want to come back Monday morning.
Yeah, see, there it is, right? So about 4:15 on Friday afternoon, we had a verdict.
Yeah.
And that verdict was acquittal on murder 1, acquittal on murder 2, conviction on voluntary manslaughter. So, some kind of a
Sounds
negotiation.
like some wheeling dealing was going on back there, wasn't it? Yeah.
And I think we'd all like to say, well, if I'm going to stand on my convictions, Are you? You know they're going to be another week sitting here away from your family and loved ones? And again, I don't know what that 600-year-old dragon is interested in. And I also don't know what the moral convictions of the 600-year-old dragon are.
And it's like a lot of things, guys. John mentioned this earlier. Jury duty and voting are really the only two times that most of us exercise our civil rights, right? Most of us. I mean, some people go out and protest and sign petitions and stuff, but most of us, it's jury duty and voting. And people who try to get out of jury duty, basically what you're saying is if you're ever the defendant, do you want people that didn't want to be on your jury to be on your jury? Or do you want people that care about listening to the facts and giving the fairest shake that they can give? But the fact of the matter is, even good, conscientious people who are going to give you the fairest shake they can give are still going to go home and hug their kids and go back to their job tomorrow.
Yep.
This is a blip on their radar, right? It's your entire life, your freedom, everything about your life. It hinges on what happens here. But they're going back to work Monday morning.
So their experience,
you don't really want to set the stage where it's easy for them to make a quick decision necessarily. Yeah, I would not have wanted the jury to get that case at 1 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. No
their
way.
Experience doesn't affect the rest of their life.
That's right.
It does affect the defendants, right? Now, hopefully a conscientious jury member realizes that and says, this won't affect the rest of my life, but I hold in my hands the rest of theirs. Yeah. And so I have to be incredibly conscientious here, ask, if we're in a criminal trial, did the prosecution prove their burden beyond a reasonable doubt? I beat that drum real hard,
How many people, I hate to be cynical, but how many people have that kind of intestinal fortitude these days? A lot fewer than they did 30 years ago, I think.
Well, and I can tell you, I've been on a case where we had a single juror that was holding out for acquittal on a case in 5 days. The judge never gave that instruction. And the other jurors, she even said, she wrote a sworn statement later that's part of the appeal process right now, that the other jurors bullied her hard enough that she changed her vote.
Oh, wow. So they did get a verdict on that one finally.
They got a verdict.
Wow, okay.
And after 5 days, and the judge didn't even ask, though, if it was a coerced verdict.
Yeah, that's coercion that the judge was complicit in, it sounds to me.
Yeah, when you're like, that shouldn't have happened. Yeah. And so literally the appeal attorney was like, my God, how do we not, this will get the judge censured, for this level of abuse of judicial discretion. We'll see how that one goes. The wheels of appeal turn slowly, right? We're still working on that. It's almost 11 months after verdict so far.
That's not long on the appeal process.
And not long on the appeal process.
Couple 3 years.
Yeah. They're hopeful. It's a Michigan case. They're hopeful to get it done in under 18 months. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to be sitting in jail for that. So I think Tim's kind of the same opinion, man. That jury, those 12 parts of its personality, its IQ. Yeah. I call it a 600-year-old dragon.
And I'm going to steal that, by the way, just so you know.
By all means, man, have at it. And listen, I don't want to face the dragon. Now, if I have to be a part of the dragon, I'm willing to. Yeah. In fact, I don't think I'd ever be a part of a criminal jury, though. Shwink. Yeah, thanks for your interest, Mr. Korea.
More than likely.
Have a nice day. Has anybody here ever been a part of this process? Yeah, I have. What have you done? I'm a court-admitted expert witness. Get out of here, You're going to screw with our process too much. All right, fine, whatever. But I think good people, like the folks who watch Active Self-Protection Extra, should be a part of the jury. And I think that, though, you should recognize, I want to stay the heck away from them.
I tell almost every client, I don't care, and I don't mean to be sacrilegious on this. I know I'm in the presence of a minister, but I don't care if Jesus Christ comes down from heaven above and tries your case for you as your attorney. If you step in front of a jury, there's a 20% chance that you're going to prison.
It's totally true.
And in order to hire me to go forward on a trial, you're going to sign a document where you acknowledge that I've advised you of that. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to bring in a wheelbarrow full of $100 bills. Yeah. And we'll go, I love jury trials. I love trying to make a jury laugh in an appropriate way. I love trying to gain their confidence. I love trying to teach them. I think I'm a good teacher. I love teaching. But only an arrogant fool would say, we're going to win this case. Don't you worry about it. This is the best jury trial. Don't even worry about it. We're going to win this case. That is a lie.
Guys, that last one that I just did, and again, if you're in Unlimited, you can listen to the whole thing. I made the jury laugh in courts. I said, hey, when I write...
It's important they do it in the right way, at the right spot. But you're going to do that. You're going to walk that line,
Well, I talked to them about what's my job as an expert witness, and I said, look, one of my big jobs is somebody sends me discovery, and I say, hey, counselor, I'll tell you if your baby's fat and ugly. I will tell you if your baby's ugly.
Don't ask if you don't want to hear it.
Yeah, don't ask, because that's my job.
I would say the same thing.
To tell you your baby's fat and ugly, because if you need to take a plea, I want to tell you that. And a couple 3 jury members laughed about that. Right. And I'm like, look, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying that's my job. And I'm here because my opinion is this. And the defense attorney said, I appreciate that opinion and I think it helps my case, so I want to hire me. I said, it's sometimes worth asking the other sides, have they gotten any other expert opinions and do they disagree? Mm-hmm. And I said that, and that because I knew that the prosecutor had hired a previous expert who he said it was self-defense, and so he didn't hire that guy. Now, I can't tell the jury that, but you know.
Would that you could.
Would that I could, right? So anyways, I think that when we've gotten a little bit of field, but what Tim said, I don't want to face a jury if I can help it. I love, as the expert, man, you give me 12 people, 14 usually, because you got a couple of alternates. But I get to educate these people. I get to talk to them. I love it. The prosecutor in a criminal case, if I'm working for the defense, he thinks he can get under my skin. Go ahead, buddy. Come on, try. Because you're not going to, and I'm going to make you look like a dummy in front of these good people if you try. But I don't want to face it as a defendant. And so the only way to keep away from the dragon is be a good, sane, sober, moral, prudent person. Try to avoid gunfights if I can. So.
Don't get in that position.
There it is.
Amen.
Tim, thanks for the discussion.
As always, buddy, thanks for having me.
Good
My
stuff.
pleasure.